name is Sebastia Galbany. I'm a photographer from Barcelona, Spain, and I'm exhibiting my work at Kalwit Gallery in Bangkok. The exhibition is called Rite of Passage. In this exhibition, I'm showing images from my 20-month trip around Southeast Asia, countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. The reason for this exhibition is I wanted to show and document the places that I've been during my trip with the hopes of inspiring people to travel and see the world. I'm going to go a little back before, like when I was really young. I think like photography was thanks to my father. He really likes photography, and when I was young, during like holidays and vacations and celebrations, he used to have like an old Nikon like film camera. So it was always home, and I kind of like he let me shoot and like taught me how everything worked, and I fell in love with like taking pictures and like the process itself and like the machines, the mechanical part. So I really enjoyed that, but like after a few years I kind of like got distracted. So I ended up studying graphic design. There was another creative outlet. It wasn't photography, but it seemed like it was more like job opportunities, and I really enjoyed graphic design. So I ended up like studying graphic design, but I was really lucky because you know, they say like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So that's what happened for me. So during graphic design, one of the subjects was photography. So I was really lucky. I had the teacher photographer. He was like really obsessed with photography, and he like really loved the craft. So he really went deep into photography, like teaching us, like we're like on the dark room and developing film on the digital age. That was like 2008 or something. So like it made me fall in love with photography again. So yeah, like after I finished my graphic design education, so I was working my daily job. All my income during weekdays was graphic design, but on the weekends I found like a way to work as a photographer, motorsport photographer. Taking pictures of races and like motorcycles. And what a nice accident was like, because this kind of job, you work on the track taking pictures of the cars itself, and you also work on the pit lane, like where all the people, the mechanics are and everything. So I really enjoyed that part, even more than the cars, because I found a way to, like, it's a very dynamic sport, so like a lot of people moving, a lot of things moving all the time. So I always like to take the viewer with me as a photographer. So like that was like a really nice place to do all the movement and like tires, cars going everywhere. So I really enjoyed that, getting close to people and like trying to get in the middle of and making like people feel like they are there. So that was a nice combination of like elements that made me fall in love with that. But yeah, so it was clear that I wanted to take many more pictures that I was taking. So, and I really fell in love with more like the human aspect of photography, like taking pictures of like people more than landscapes, for example. I really felt the connection, but I was trying to do like take a more photography, like street photography back home in Barcelona, but I never found like a rhythm back there. I felt, you could say, intimidated about like approaching strangers and people and asking for portraits. So it was like always a fear of like, well, they're gonna be like uncomfortable, somebody's gonna be angry, he's gonna scream at me. So yeah, actually it's weird how it worked. Yeah, as back home I really had trouble like getting the confidence to do it, but at the same time I was at a moment of my life that I needed to change. I felt a little like my world was getting smaller, so I knew I had to change something. And well, I bought the ticket to Vietnam. My trip started in Vietnam, and since I knew I wanted to document my trip, so yeah, I forced myself when I was like on the first 2 weeks in Vietnam already, like, okay, I'm gonna start taking portraits, something that I couldn't do back home. And I don't know if it was because everything was new, like exciting. I was like far from home, like kind of far from my old me, you know, all my excuses. So it kind of like felt much easier to just push myself and like doing it. And after a few portraits, it got like better and better, the feelings, and I proved myself that a lot of times it's the mind that you expect like the worst thing. So you, on your mind, it's like, these people is gonna get angry, you know, and they're gonna punch me, you know. So like, but it always ended up being like a good experience. Like, I think it's very important to like, or ask permission or like thank people. So there's always like a small interaction, even if it's like 10 seconds with the people that you take portraits. So it always ends up like being like, even if it's a smile. So like, I kind of prove myself that it was my brain kind of tricking me not to take the pictures, but it was.
Did you go alone?
Yeah.
And how were you able to sort of overcome the language barrier or difference of language?
Actually, like it was an interesting, because in a lot of these countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, especially Laos, there's no English almost, like people don't speak English, so you kind of have to communicate more like on signs and basically smiles. But it's the thing, it's the most useful tool in this. As a photographer, to take pictures, like to ask permission and as to travel around. I think if you like, it kind of disarms people, like it shows your intention, and like, yeah, it was like just signs, and like when you cannot communicate, like both sides, me and the other person, it's like, feels like you have to make like an extra effort to show how you feel or if give permission. So the interactions are like really short in time, but they're like more intense than simply if you had like, if we share the same language, that it would be more like a conversation, an easier conversation. Feel like you connect in a more deeper way, you know, because you don't have the language, so it's more about like eye contact and yeah.
So when it comes to communicating, which country you think you find most easy or welcoming?
Easy, I think Thailand. Actually Thailand, yeah, because I think maybe the countries. Well, I would say like Thailand or Indonesia. When I was in Indonesia, I was only in Bali. But in Bali too, like there's a lot of people that speak English. There's a lot of tourism, and especially on the south. So it's easier to find someone that speaks English, and that make things easier in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I'm glad that there was like a lot of places, like especially Laos, that, you know, on my opinion, it would be like the place like less developed in Southeast Asia, so like nobody speaks English there, far from the capital, Vientiane. So kind of if you don't share, what I was saying, if you don't share the same language, you are forced to communicate in another way. And a lot of occasions that turn out to be like a really nice experience. Like the way to ask something, it's like offering you food, you know, like offering you water, like they invite you to their house, you know, like it's their way to show curiosity and appreciation, instead of like saying a normal conversation of, hi, how are you? The trip was originally like planned just for 2 months, the trip, but I didn't want to put like a big objective, like a year, no, I wanted to see how it goes, but I really enjoyed a lot, like photography was kind of my vehicle to just keep going, and it was what pushed me. So at the end, the trip was like 20 months. So it was kind of like, it was a concept, I found it like reading, and it kind of explained what this trip was for me. It was kind of like a change, like a coming of age for me and also my photography. So it's kind of as I told you, I felt like I needed a change in my life generally back home. So like this trip allowed me to kind of expand my views, like as a photographer and as a person, like prejudices and like know people, know different cultures. So it was kind of a transformation for me, this trip actually, like kind of like a new me, like leaving behind some things that I didn't like about me, and kind of find a new way, you know, for me. And rite of passage, it's kind of this concept, like in some cultures, they do it, it's like that, a coming of age, you know, it's like younger, like the change. It's used more like the change from like teenage years to like an adult, like in some tribes. So it can be something like leaving the village and going hunting alone for the first time, or like some kind of test, you know. So it's kind of forgetting your old roles in your society, like becoming a new person. So I think like that concept kind of summarizes a lot what this trip was for me, like an evolution, like a change, like a new me.
before we talk about these other cultures you experience, what is your view in Spain and their way of rite of passage? What does it mean to be like an adult in Spain?
Yeah, I think like I feel like modern society in a lot of ways, like more like Western, like Europe's, and I feel like we kind of lost the way a little, and we are just more like it's all about money and like capitalism. So I feel like you are raised since you are young, like you just go to school to learn a craft and then work and then like earn a lot of money. So it's kind of, I feel like it's the target, you know, like there's no change. You're just all your life preparing for like, you know, like get a good job and more salary and like kind of win a lot of money, like kind of climb the ladder, you know, like getting better and better, but you kind of don't have a purpose. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to like leave behind. I felt like there's another way to live, I think. I feel like more than a specific country, it's like general, like all the countries like this Southeast Asia, I feel there's more like a feeling of like kind of taking life more moment to moment and kind of, sounds like a topic, but kind of enjoying like the small things. In a lot of ways, you know, I ended up in a lot of places that really like poverty is a real thing. So like they kind of like money, it's out of the equation. They just live day to day, and they don't have like this kind of, they are not greedy. So like in a lot of ways they are more appreciative. A recurring theme in people that I met, it's that seems that the less the people have, the more they give. So like even like traveling to like really poor villages, and they just offer everything they have to you, like food and like accommodation, and you're just like, I come here like a giant with my money, and they don't have anything by our standards, like European standards. They are really poor, but they're like so generous with it. So I kind of feel like yeah, and religion is much more present here than in Europe or on the States, I think. So yes, actually, it was one of the nice things traveling. The nice things about traveling that I really enjoy is like being open to whatever like the road offers instead of like having a plan. So this was one of the many occasions in my trip that I end up in one place meeting someone that talks you about someone, and you end up with a completely different place that you thought about. So in that case, in Thailand, I met a girl that she really liked like martial arts, and we started talking about Muay Thai, and I've never been like a big fan of martial arts, but I knew about Muay Thai and I was really curious, and I kind of like one day like, why not, if you have to ever try like Muay Thai, like I mean it's gonna be in Thailand. So I kind of like I was trying to find like a place to train Muay Thai. I know I wasn't gonna be a fighter, but just to get a taste for it. And I did a little bit of research, and I ended up in a Muay Thai gym near Bangkok on the outskirts, like called Luk Tup Pha. And I really loved it, and the experience, and like I ended up in a good place because not many Westerns, not many Phalangs there. It was like a really like a true gym, a lot of locals, a lot of the real deal, you know, a lot of people trying to be champions there. So it was a nice experience, and at the same time, like it allowed me to get to know like the trainers and all this kind of Muay Thai world. So it allowed me to take this kind of more intimate pictures on the gym and with the persons, and I ended up like going to a lot of fights, attending them, and I was able to get access to a lot of places through being a student at the gym. I never keep all my pictures, so like it's always you edit, so you just, well, I was doing the math, and it was something around 60,000 images.
Yeah, how do you edit or select out of 50,000?
Yeah, it was, I used Lightroom to edit, so yeah, just kind of, I just put all the pictures and like kind of like discard a lot. Obviously, I think maybe the keepers are like around 10%, but I think it's not bad. So one of the things that I had to learn is how to edit my work, how to select, because I think it's a thing that it's really hard, and people, I think it's one of the hardest parts to edit your work, because you end up always like, okay, you discard the ones that you don't like, but you always have those ones that, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I don't want to delete it, you know, and you end up like selection, and you end up anyway with like 500 images, and you have to be like, select. So it was hard, but you kind of learn to just know, just save the keepers, the one that struck you like, okay, this one. So like it's hard, but you get good at it, and sometimes you have so much work that you just kind of like, you cannot be like keeping everything. So I discard all the ones, I cannot save them, obviously. Yes, actually the people here at Kalwit give me a lot of recommendations, and at the end we end up with choosing, prioritizing size for this exhibition instead of like framed options. So because we knew the images were like, I wanted to create like an impact to the viewer. So as I was saying, like feel that they were there. So we agreed that like size was important, like to get a big picture so like people can almost fall inside. So like because of the size, at the end we choose like like put it on the foam, mounting the images on a foam. And about the paper, we talked with, I printed here in Bangkok in a print shop called Bloom Pro Lab, that they did a great job. And we kind of did like pre-tests. They let me choose like a few papers. At the beginning, we were thinking about more like craft, a paper with more grain, not so much photographic. But we did some print tests and we discarded the idea, and we went with more like a matte paper. In this case, it's an Epson luster. It was like the option also Ilford option, but at the end we choose like Epson, and yeah, the result was really great, like matte finish, and the colors work really well. So I was really happy with the result. Even black and white, the blacks were like deep black. So, but again, that's really good job from Bloom Pro Lab here in Bangkok. Yeah, I feel like in this case, like for a big image, I think glossy would be more like, depending on the place, you have to consider the place that you exhibit your work, but it can create a lot of times like reflections. So like depending on where the light is, you know that you can lose like main angle. Imagine like frontal with the image, you could lose because you have a reflection. So you have a lot of this happen sometimes in galleries, or maybe the photo is matte, but they put like a glass over, so you see a lot of this kind of trying to not get the reflection. So, and I can, at the end it's like personal too, and I like the matte finish. It allows, it's not too shiny, so yeah, the matte color, the matte finish of it. This image was taken in Bali, in the kind of like east of the country, and in a town called Buk. And I was actually traveling from the south, Denpasar, to the north of the island by motorcycle, a scooter, like kind of commuting. And I went through this village, and I heard noise, like they were doing some celebration. This is a Hindu celebration in Bali. Like most people is Hindu, and Hindus, they're always celebrating something. All the temples are always full. So I kind of heard the noise and like rumble, like probably there's a celebration, and I just went to check it out, and it ended up being like this really fascinating celebration. It was like 3-day celebration. I ended up like going every day, but everything was kind of, the celebration took place, the town itself was really small, but it happened like in the main square of the village, and there was like chantings and like dancing, and kind of like the celebration was about kind of, you could say it's kind of an exorcism. So like it's once a year, so like people kind of like wake up the demons on them, and that can manifest in like screaming, in like dancing, in like many different ways, and even like fainting. There's a lot of people that just faint and pass out. So like people, all the rest of the people just kind of help these people to the altar. There's an altar on this. They have like this big containers with holy water. So they just bring the people that they're like manifesting these kind of energies and inside demons, and they just splice them with water, and they just completely collapse and like they just cry. For example, this image, this man was like 30 seconds before was like screaming and like pushing everyone, and they just pour, this is just seconds after pouring water on them, and he just started crying and like completely relaxed. So you can really feel the energy of the place and like how they really felt. You can believe on this or not, but like the energy of the place was like all the people there, you could feel like yeah, the energy of the place. You get like goosebumps a lot of times, you know, like a lot of people around and chanting. And actually it was like people there on the celebration, on the ceremony itself, like young people. Normally it's just the one that speaks. It's easier for them to, it's easier to find someone young that speaks English. But they were really, again, like in Bali I was really fortunate because, well, I think people is really nice. How can I put it? Like people in this ceremony was really welcoming. So like to giving me access to this place and like explaining me what was going on. So you always have to be like, it's a delicate subject when you take pictures of like a religious ceremony, because you want to be there, you want to get close, but at the same time you want to be respectful, or at least is what I feel like. So they were really open to the idea of me taking pictures really close. They had all the right in the world to just, I mean, everyone there was a local. So I was like the tallest white guy with beard. So they would have been, they had all the right in the world to just tell me like, don't get close.
But that never happened.
No, but they were like really open and friendly about it and just explaining me things and allowing me to get right there on the action. So yeah, I kind of knew like people like asking and people like curious about me too, like explaining this ceremony as this, and a lot of new concepts for me, because again, like each religion has all these different variations, and like Hinduism is a massively rich religion with a lot of gods and different beliefs. So.
Are you religious yourself?
No, I'm not. I cannot say I cannot put a name. Like I'm not Christian, any of the conventional ones, but really, I definitely think that thanks to this trip, I kind of realized that it has to be something else. Call it the universe, some kind of energy that has to be something else. There's like this kind of like serendipity, this kind of like ways of life that you end up like in a place that you never thought, and like the energy of the place and like all these coincidences, like it has to be something else. So I cannot put a name on it, but definitely I think like there's places that they just irradiate some kind of different energy, like being a temple or like people. So like that they are able, going back to what we're saying about people that you cannot communicate. So you just have to communicate through like eyesight and like gestures and smiles, and you just get so close to people sometimes without even communication, because the people projects so much energy. And then goes back, that concept goes back to photography, taking pictures. I think a lot of times, most of the times, you project the energy you project is what you get. It's kind of a mirror. So at the beginning it happened to me a lot. When you're like on a mood and you don't feel like it, but you push yourself, you end up finding more rejection from people, and you a lot of times it's like, what's going on? Like people is more angry today. And you end up like, you do some kind of self-reflection, and it's you that you are not so much open. And so when you find the rhythm and you kind of like more open, more smiley, like interactions go well and you take pictures, like suddenly like everything is so smooth, everyone is so happy with the pictures. So it's going back to this kind of concept of energy, you know, like the vibrations that you project. I find that a lot. I'm struggling with that idea because again, like I'm not a religious person, but I encounter in this trip so many occasions where it has to be something else. Definitely. Yeah, actually, yes. My plan was to do like a daily journal, like daily entries with what happened, and it's kind of what I did at the beginning. Like, but I've never been I've never been a big writer, so but I kind of push myself to do it. I think it's a way also to reflect after the day or after some weeks or reflect what happened, to give it a second thought. But at the end, it ended up being more, instead of like a journal in the general sense of the word, like daily entries, it was more like reflections, you could say. So I kind of like read when I kind of had something to tell or experienced something that I thought was worth recording, so you can go back to it. So yeah, kind of like these thoughts and the kind of conversation we're having now, like all these experiences and things that you discover on your trip, like how can a smile can change completely your mood. It happened a lot of times that you have like a bad day and you're traveling. At the beginning of the trip I was traveling by motorcycle, so sometimes in the morning you have like these bad days, you're on a mood, you are like angry because it rains or whatever reason, and like you cross a village and you end up finding like a kid like waving at you with the biggest of smiles, and before noticing you're like smiling again, and 30 seconds before you were angry. So it's kind of all this kind of human interactions. I don't know, so yeah, I kind of end up writing kind of a journal of these like thoughts that I had on the road. Yeah, I think it's useful, and I think it's useful like when you're writing them, as I said, as a reflection. And again, if you can manage to read it after, like if you can wait even like 6 months or something, you can like reflect on things, and we tend to forget a lot of things that we learn, at least for me. You get one day, you get like nice experience and you kind of in a nice mood, and then a few months later you feel more down, so it's good to have those notes to go back to and like taking you back. So when you are having a nice time, I think it helps with the balance, definitely. No, I think like the quality of the images, the cameras that are coming right now, the last decade, I mean the quality is insane. Even if you end up buying like an amateur DSLR, the quality is really, really, really good. So there's no, I think on the past, beginning of more digital, you really had to high-end camera in order to print in good quality, but not anymore. I think like something basic like a Nikon 5000, but I don't know exactly prices, but maybe just the body is like, I don't know, 400 euros, and you're gonna have a lot of quality and more than enough quality. So I feel a lot of people get like obsessed with megapixels and performance, and at the end it's not about that. So and again, for these prints, like I think it's really good to print your own pictures, like to see your pictures like in real life, so you can touch them instead of seeing digital. But yeah, like I would say like maybe 95% of the images that people see now are like on a screen, on the phone, on the computer. So like you could, I mean the quality is like, if you can print with this quality, you end up looking at a size like this with a phone. So the quality is more than enough. So yeah, like yeah, this guy had a lot of demons in him.
Is it the same event with?
It's the same event, that's correct, yeah. That was one of the guys, like, as I was saying, each person manifests these inner demons in a different way. And this man, he was like into killing chicken, I guess. So like when he was in trance, there was like a place, they had like a few like items, and some of them were like a cage with like chickens, and actually that was his second chicken. So he just grabs the chicken and just chew the head off, just kind of splash with blood, and was giving like mean looks to everyone, and yeah, kind of was quite gore, but yeah, it was really nice with in that case, that image was, he was just coming to me, so like I had literally like blood like drops on the filter of the camera, so that was, and he was coming at me, so yeah, but again, like that's one of the things that once he got to the altar and they put holy water on them, he just kind of collapsed and cries. So it's, I guess, yeah, a lot of times like the higher the inner demons they look, the more kind of show they did, the more went down after the water. So.
And then the picture behind me of the woman painting.
Yes, that was. I think maybe that's my favorite image. kind of tells you the mood of like people helping each other, like the different ways of reacting to this. So yeah, actually the woman on the center was like just kind of passing out and constantly, and like people were helping her to bring her to the altar. And the other girl that we see on the image, maybe 1 minute before, she was dancing in I perfectly remember how it was, like in a really sinister, creepy way, you could say. She was like dancing really slow with a really big smile, like looking straight you in the eyes. So it was really creepy, like really frightening. So again, like each person manifested in their way, but yeah, and it's a dynamic image because you could see like the woman on the center. It's kind of, because I get to get really close, I got like in a natural way like this kind of shadows around, so because shadows of people, and she's like illuminated from the center, so it's kind of a divine light that comes from above, and it has all this like religious atmosphere into it. So yeah, I really loved it, and you can see like all all the clothes they're wearing, like the traditional clothes, wet from the water, from like splashing her previously. And yes, this is it's called this is in those images are in Bali too, during a celebration called Nyepi. It's the Balinese New Year that actually happened a few weeks ago again. And yeah, it's also like the day of silence. I think they do it after, so it's a big celebration. And like all the streets of, like, you would say, like a big area, like each street or each neighborhood, for weeks or even months previous to the celebration, they build these kind of monsters called ogo-ogos. And yeah, like during the day of the celebration at night, this goes like until way past, like well into the night, they kind of like find a square and they unite all these ogo-ogos and they compete between them. All the base of these monsters, they have like sticks so they can like carry it, so they kind of dance with the monsters, they compete between another and they choose one. And yeah, they kind of represent demons and they like try to be frightening. So like this was like well into the night, and with all the lights and everything. And the other image is like, the images were taken maybe half an hour apart, and there's like this kind of processions on the street too, like really beautiful, like silent, and with this, and also with the traditional instruments. So yeah, all this candlelight, I love it. So all this warm, hot light, so I really love it, yeah. And you can see like in this image the detail of, you can see the traditional costume, the woman itself is beautiful, and you can see like the drop of sweat on her chest. So it's kind of, with the traditional dress, it was really hot, it was at night, but it was really hot. So it kind of tells, it works for me visually and like conceptually, yeah.
And are those sort of 3 photos over there?
Yeah, those 3 images are from Laos, and one is from Vietnam. I really enjoy exploring the north of Laos. Again, I was traveling with motorcycle at the time, so through Google Earth, I saw like a big series of like mountain valley, and I saw like a village in the top of the mountain. So I kind of like decided to go, and it was like, it took me 3 hours through, there's no roads there, there's just a small path crossing like the jungle, and after 3 hours of like crashing several times with a motorcycle, I end up in this village. I like to call that village Neverland, like the Peter Pan story, because when I arrived there was only kids, only children. There were no adults at all. Presumably, like the adults were like away working for the day. So they were just kids, and they were so curious at the beginning, but so frightening. You end up like in places that a lot of times they've never seen a white person before. So at the beginning they were like frightening and like running around, like escaping, and I was there quite a lot of time, so they kind of like got used to me and like get closer and closer. And you take the portrait, like everyone is afraid for you to taking pictures, but then you take one and all the other ones get kind of jealous and take pictures of me. So So they came closer, and it ended up like being a really beautiful day and playing with them. So, and the other image, the one from Vietnam, kind of the theme of those three images, like these wild kids, because again, like this village was like far deep into the jungle or the mountains. So, and they were just like going around, coming from the jungle, like it's their playground. So, and the other image is Vietnam. It's from the north of Vietnam, like the border with China. And it was a school actually. I met someone on a restaurant, a really small restaurant, and he's a teacher. And he invited me to teach a class, like basically just speak English to the kids. And I said yes, and we spent the day there, and I took that picture there, and it was the same feeling of like these kids running around in the middle of the jungle, and I put them together as a series of like this theme was like wild kids. Yeah. These two images are like are the same celebration in book as these ones. Those ones are book, and those ones is in Canggu. It's more south of Bali. But you could see like the same. In this case, like they had like a coconut skin, like dry coconut skin on fire. They had like a pit. And in this case, this man just took one of the peels on fire and just kind of like put down the fire on his arm. And the other one is like a woman fainting too, like a group of like 5 men helping her, get to the altar. I try to travel the cheapest way possible. So sometimes I prioritize travel distances and experience a lot. So that means that normally my trips end up being like really long. So I really have to be careful spending money. And in order for your money to last a long time, you have to say no to a lot of commodities, and a lot of times that means sleeping in from sketchy places, or sleeping on the side of the road, or being hungry a lot of times. So
you slept on the side of the road before?
Before the trip, you mean, or during the trip?
Or during the trip?
Yeah, it happened once. Actually, like it's hard here in Asia because accommodation is so cheap. But actually, one time, like on north of Vietnam, just was like it was a night, and I was like too tired to keep driving, and just sleeping on the side of the road. More than sleeping was like a long nap, but yeah, it happened. But I mean, it's not really it's not a big deal. Like if you think about it back home, you think like, oh my God, but it's just you go camping, right? So it's like the same. So, but yeah, I kind of have to renounce to comfort a lot of times in order to make, but I think it adds to the experience, and often the hardest days are the ones that you remember more and you end up learning more from. So like I wouldn't change anything, even the hard times. So, and I prioritize. Another thing that I wanted to mention is travel light. I wanted to travel really light. I want to be able at any moment to just grab all my things, just put it on the back, and be able to walk like all day with all my things. I didn't want to carry like trolleys or all these things. So, so I had to pack my laptop with me, which was really helpful, but I wasn't sure to do it because like a laptop and like all the electronics are really heavy, and are heavy on the back, like physically, and heavy for me like mentally. So it's another expensive things that you travel with. So I knew I wanted to travel with a camera, that's for sure, but I like to focus. You have one thing that is expensive, the camera, so you just put all your attention there, and it's the only thing that you cannot lose. All the bag is like just clothes. If you lose them, you can buy more clothes. So the idea of taking a laptop was like taking two kind of expensive things. So when I say that it weighs on your mind, it's a thing that sometimes when you leave your backpack somewhere, or on the motorcycle, or on some kind of hostels or the places, sometimes it's something on the back of your mind, like getting worried about the laptop, and like delicate things. But and actually only when I was traveling by motorcycle, that was the first 5 months, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. I bought the motorcycle in Hanoi. So like I crossed the border, like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. And there were some problems while driving with police, like from the side of in the kind of, they kind of see like a tourist, like a falang, like with a motorcycle, and they know that, they think at least that you have money, so a lot of time, in a lot of occasions, they kind of stop you and ask you for like a ridiculously amount of papers and documents that they perfectly know that you don't have. So it all, sadly, it all ends up with a bribe. Yeah, like some border crossings too, because in theory you cannot cross borders with a motorcycle, so you always kind of try to sneak in, so like park the motorcycle outside and get your papers and then travel with a motorcycle. And the border between Cambodia and Laos, I had a few problems with police that saw that I was driving with a motorcycle, and because of the motorcycle, but again, like it was just, they were just looking for a bribe. So yeah, actually, like the funny thing is, like the more you travel, the more places, like your list of countries that you want to go, the more you travel, the longer it gets, because you discover new places. So yeah, definitely here in Asia, Southeast Asia specifically, there's still a lot of countries, like there's Myanmar, for example, that I think it's really promising, like I would love to be there. There's like Philippines, there's like Malaysia, all these countries. Malaysia I've been by really short time, and even all these countries that I've been, I still like feel like going back and exploring much more. And then you have like, if you go a little west, you have like Sri Lanka, you have like India. India is gonna be like, that's gonna be insane. It's like a dream going there. And once you start expanding, like Nepal and like places like Mongolia, China, so like yeah, I would definitely like all the world there. And then still you have like the other side of the world. The other big trip is like South America. I think that can be like a really planning, like an amazing trip, a lot of different cultures and traveling more outdoor trip, like camping and all these things. So yeah, basically like, yeah, open to anything, really. I wouldn't go. Actually, yes, I am. My favorite photographer, maybe all time, it's Robert Capa. He was like an old photographer from back in World War II, and Cartier-Bresson and all these people. So like war photography is a thing that always attracted me, like for the intensity, as I said, like I like to capture all this action and like bring people into the places. So like there's no more intense place than a war zone. So I fantasize about the idea, but I think you have to be like a special kind of person to be able to work on those places, because I think working in those environments, it can change you, like as a person. I think you need, yeah, to be like. I think because the idea also of like war photography and conflict photography, like in a sense, it's been like kind of how can I say, like romanticized. Like it's like, yeah, the life of like adventure life and all this thing. And I think it's extremely hard and extremely dangerous nowadays. So I've talked with a lot of people that they would like to try it, but I think it's really the commitment that you need to do this kind of job. It's really big. I don't think people realize how big is it. So I was lucky enough to work with a couple of NGOs in Cambodia, not conflict zones, not by any means, but after working with the NGO, it was like really gratifying job. So I was for a few months I was trying to contact people and to work with MSF, like Doctors Without Borders. I think they are doing like an amazing job, and they have a lot of presence in like conflict zones. So and for a time I was really trying to go there and get a job there, but it's complicated with the NGOs to get your foot on the door. But yeah, I would really love to. And there's like a Spanish NGO. Since a lot of years ago, they are saving people on the Mediterranean, like refugees that cross. So it's a thing that I would love to. I've shared a couple of emails with them, and I would love to work with with them. And in a way, you feel like kind of doing meaningful work that can affect people and really change lives. And so like it's the best thing that you can aspire to. I think it's to change to motivate people, to help, or like to bring something to light into society, because I feel a lot of conflicts and all these things, which is kind of people don't want to know about it, so we're like blind to all the conflicts and a lot of awful things that are happening around the world. So like if you can put a spotlight in there, so if through your photography can get these images on the front page of some newspaper with, and you can manage to help that's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, the conflict photography is the thing that I thought about, but I don't know if I could put my parents through that, honestly. But yeah, full commitment. Yes. So yeah, as I was saying before, like I felt like my way before my life before traveling was, honestly, I felt like my world was getting smaller and smaller. So like I had my routine perfectly planned, like work, home. So I felt like my world was getting smaller, and anything out of this routine was like a cause of like anxiety, or like, and I feel that's a common thing between like people. So I knew I wanted to travel, and travel was the way for me to change. But what I realized is what was stopping me from traveling was fear, and I was putting excuses. So this trip showed me like a lot of times like our enemy, it's our own head. We are our worst enemy. Like we're kind of fear things that we shouldn't fear. So this trip teach me and show me that things are never as bad as we picture them. So if I had something to show to people or tell to people is yeah, like don't let fear take decisions for you. I guess that would be like every time you take a decision or you pass on something or you choose something, make sure like it's for the right decisions and not because you're really afraid of something and you're putting excuses. So I think like yeah, maybe the best what I can like project to people is like don't be afraid, and if you want to really do something like traveling, for example, I think just do it. You're not gonna regret it, just doing it. I couldn't be more happy about doing it. I would be missing all the things that I experienced the last 2 years are unpayable. Like I wouldn't change. Like there's hard times, there's good times. So like, but that's life. I think I choose that instead of stable routine any day. So like I'm really glad.